Good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:03 p.m., and I will call to order this hybrid public meeting. It is February 5th, 2025. My name is Elaine Thatcher, and I am the Vice Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Chair Julie Bond is unable to attend this evening and is excused. Regular meetings and public hearings of the Clark County Historic Preservation Commission are held in a hybrid format, with both in-person and virtual participation options for commissioners, staff, and the public. This will allow for safe participation by commission members, staff, and any citizen interested in attending. For those of you joining remotely via computer, you should be able to see tonight's meeting agenda on your screen. If you can't see the screen and have joined by phone only, I will be announcing the agenda items as we move through the meeting topics. Members of the public and applicants who have joined remotely are attendees. Other event participants cannot hear your audio unless you are acknowledged by the commission chair or staff and are unmuted. This evening's agenda is planned as follows: roll call, prior meeting minutes approval, public comment for subjects other than public hearings on tonight's meeting's agenda, as there will be specific public comment periods as part of the hearing, updates from partner organizations, Clark County Comprehensive Plan updates for Historic Chapter, City of Vancouver Advisory Review for the Smith Tower, Old Business, Commission announcements and events, subcommittee updates, for good of the order, and adjournment. We will now have a roll call of HPC members who are present for this meeting. Commission members, please say "I'm here" after I call your name. Jan Bader.
Here.
Morgan Fraser.
Here.
Andy Gregg.
I'm here.
Heidi Mandler Huff.
Here.
Elaine Thatcher is here. John Zingali.
Here.
Other one.
Here.
And Julie Bond is excused. Next, we will review the January 8th meeting minutes for approval. Is there any discussion or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve the January 8th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved. From Greg.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Morgan Fraser.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Let's have a voice vote for approving these minutes. Everyone say aye.
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 Excellent. Everyone who doesn't approve say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next, we'll move on to public comment. We will begin with attendees in the room, if any. Please approach the microphone if you would like to make a comment. Seeing none, we will now take public comment from online attendees. Susan, can you please read the instructions?
Yes, if you are using a computer, a tablet, or a smartphone, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. There are instructions on the screen on how to do this. Typically, the hand icon is located towards the bottom of your screen. For anyone on the telephone, please dial *3 on your phone's number panel to raise your hand. Staff will be able to see hands once they are raised and will request to unmute you one at a time. Please note public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person in order to accommodate all speakers. I do not see any raised hands.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. This concludes the general public comment portion of this meeting. We will now hear updates from partner organizations. We will begin with the regular update from the Historic Trust.
Holly, I've sent you a request to unmute.
She might be back in the attendees.
Hello, this is Holly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Holly.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, commissioners, staff, and guests. This is Holly Chamberlain from the Historic Trust. Some updates for Providence Academy. The preservation crew has completed paint touch-ups in the Academy's common areas. The Small Business Incubator Rental Assistance Program is being promoted with public presentations to help spread the word. Additional funding continues to be sought to support the program. A grant application has been submitted to the Preservation Fund at the National Trust for support for capital campaign planning. The Trust provided content and assistance for a new Visit Vancouver promotion video featuring the Academy. Officers Row in the West Barracks, the final review of the RFQ for the Howard House re-roofing and siding repairs, funded in part by a Heritage Capital Project grant, has been done and it will be issued next week. The leasing information pages on the Trust website are being improved and updated. The effort to improve the lighting at the Artillery Barracks is nearly done. Light bulbs with warmer tones are being installed and the spotlight system repaired. The Trust has completed its programmatic agreement consultation with the IBR Cultural Resources staff in regard to the second draft and is preparing comments on the third draft of the programmatic agreement. Due to not receiving additional funding from the state legislature, the Washington State Historical Society and the statewide America 250 Committee have scaled back next year's commemoration. Our state will be officially recognizing the semi-quincentennial from Flag Day on June 14th, 2026 to Constitution Day on September 17th. I continue to serve on the statewide program planning committee, and the Trust continues to work with the City of Vancouver on our local observance. The Marshall Youth and Adult Leadership Awards will be presented on February 27th at 6 p.m. at the Red Cross Building. Tomorrow night, this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m., Latoya Brackett, Associate Professor of African American Studies at the University of Puget Sound, will speak on They Want Our Rhythm But Don't Want Our Blues, African American Innovation Through Pop Culture. This program from Humanities Washington is presented in partnership with NAACP Vancouver Chapter and will happen at the Howard House. The Vancouver Barracks Military Association's first speaker of the year is Aaron Jones, who will be presenting on Oliver Otis Howard, February 27th, 6 p.m. at the Howard House. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Are there any other partner organizations who wish to give an update?
I do not see any other raised hands.
Holly, if are you still there to take a question?
Holly, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
This is Holly.
Holly, this is Commissioner Zingali. I was just curious, can you repeat when the Marshall Youth and Adult Awards are again?
Yes, of course. They're on February 27th at 6 p.m. at the Red Cross Building. And there is more information on the website, historictrust.org/Marshall Awards.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Any other questions?
Not at this time. Thank you so much, Holly.
Thank you.
Excellent. This concludes the partner update portion of the meeting. Next, Anthony Tortocini, please correct me if I pronounce that wrong, from City of Vancouver is here to present an advisory review request for exterior improvements at the Smith Tower. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yes, thank you. Anthony Tortorici, Senior Planner at the City of Vancouver. I will very briefly go over the scope of the project and the required process, and I'll be able to answer any process-related questions afterwards. The applicant will follow my presentation with a presentation of their own, and they'll be able to answer any project-related questions for you. Smith Tower is located at 515 Washington Street on the corner of Washington and West 6th. You can progress the slide, please. Just an overview of the parcel there. It's a 15-story building originally built in 1966 and remodeled in 1999. 170 units that are for seniors qualifying for federal rent subsidies. It's in the Heritage Overlay District number 2. You can progress, please. So the proposal is a recladding of the exterior facade, and that's proposed to address some energy inefficiencies as well as air quality, leaking windows and noise issues. As the applicant will show, the facade will be clad in a custom curtain wall with insulated aluminum panel. And it's subject to approval criteria of the Heritage Overlay. And any exterior alterations of a building within the Heritage Overlay visible from the public right-of-way is subject to advisory review by the Historic Preservation Commission. That's why we're here. And finally, the review will conclude with a decision by City of Vancouver staff. You can progress, please. Thank you. And after our review and preparation for this meeting, staff found that the applicant has met the applicable standards, and we anticipate recommending the approval of this proposal. Did you have any process-related questions before the applicant moves forward with their presentation?
I see no questions in the room. Are there any online?
I do not see any raised hands.
Excellent. Go ahead,
Perfect.
Anthony.
Sounds good. Well, of course, I'll still be here, and then we can pass it on to the applicant. I think Taryn is here, and share their presentation. Thank you.
There we go. All right, well, thanks for having us. Anthony has covered the basis on some of the location and zoning. Next slide. This project is located at 515 Washington Street on 6th and Washington, approximately 0.27 acres. It is in the city center zoning with several overlays, as Anthony mentioned. Next slide. The original building in its form in 1966, designed and built by Bradbury and Stanek, is a 15-story cylinder with concrete slabs protruding at each floor, and this creates horizontal banding. The building is raised up above the ground on a central pier with a small ground floor lobby and parking, as well as an underground parking garage. Above the ground level at the second floor, the building continues up with the exterior is framed wall system supported at each level and is built with aluminum window system and, at the time, Harvest Gold spandrel panels. There's also use of Marblecrete, a heavy aggregate cementitious coating, and at the time of construction, all the units had patios, creating relief at the exterior. Next slide. The next round of renovations was in 1999. The remodel changes much of the clear glazing to a brown tinted glazing, and those Harvest Gold spandrels were reversed so that they're showing the beige side, so that the beige side is exposed. And then some areas were painted a pea green on the concrete slabs. Those were repainted beige, so went away from the gold and the pea green to more beige colors. At the time, the exterior balconies on the south and west side of the buildings were enclosed with the same aluminum storefront, and this was due to strong winds on those elevations that were causing disruptive noises. Next slide. These diagrams show, point out specifically those remodeled areas. At the top left, it shows an extension or enlarging of the lobby area. And on the right shows the balconies of the one-bedroom studios that were fully enclosed. And then below matches what was going up in plan. Next slide. And I'm going to have Sarah take over for the current proposal.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Lundy with MWA Architects, a project architect on this building along with Taryn. So the current renovation is striving to provide a comprehensive renovation as there's many systems and features that are in critical need of upgrades. So the focus will be on resident comfort and building function, as well as preserving the building's affordable housing status for today's residents and those in the future. The project is reliant upon HUD funding, so there are certain requirements that we need to meet for envelope as well as acoustics. And both of these requirements are going to cause a reclad of the building. So the current renovation scope for the exterior includes the removal and replacement of the single pane glass with double or triple pane for air tightness, acoustics, and thermal barrier, covering the exposed structural slabs at each floor level to avoid thermal bridging. And we're going to be using a new insulated metal cladding curtain wall system. And this is a Washington Energy Code requirement as well as HUD required. Keep the temperatures outside, keep the temperatures inside. We're going to be repairing the existing Marblecrete, which is going to require some painting of that. The enclosure of the remaining balconies will also happen. So they only exist now at the one-bedroom units on the east side of the building, south and east. And they're formed by the continuation of the structural slab. So it's just exposed structural slab, which is flush. There's no way to slope for drainage, as well as that's a giant thermal bridge bringing heat and cool into the building. In addition, the existing rails at those balconies do not meet the 42-inch minimum and constitute a life safety hazard, especially high up on the tower. For the interior renovation, we're going to be replacing the existing mechanical system with one that allows each unit to have fresh air access, heating, and cooling. Currently, the system is either on hot or it's on cold. There's no fresh air intake, and different sides of this tower, which is very glassy, require different heating and cooling needs at different times of the day throughout the year. And residents don't currently have any meaningful control over how warm or cool their apartment is. So we'll be unitizing that and allowing residents to take that on as far as what their comfort level is with heating and cooling. We'll also be providing additional structural reinforcement, some remodels for accessibility, and providing additional lobby space. Next slide, please. So here's the current renovation plans. As you can see on the ground floor, we're adding a vestibule at the entry, and that's to meet Energy Code standards, as well as capturing some additional space that's currently is courtyard storage as part of the actual lobby. So there will be occupiable lobby space as well as a mail area for residents to meet up and gather. At the upper levels, we'll be enclosing those 3 remaining balconies at the one-bedroom units. Additionally, one of those units, by capturing that space where the balcony was, we'll be able to turn it into a type A fully accessible unit in order to accommodate residents with mobility assistance devices. Each unit will receive a vertical terminal heat pump to provide heating and cooling, and an energy recovery ventilator to provide fresh air. And this will allow the residents to control the temperature of their units independent of each other. Next slide, please. So the current renovation elevations, the exterior face of the opaque portion of the window wall will be clad with a custom curtain wall system, and that includes insulated aluminum metal panel. that has and we're going to be taking a similar panelized approach as the original facade. This system will improve energy performance greatly, as well as provide needed sound mitigation and serve as a pressure equalized rain screen. So we'll have air tightness to the building. The intent is to emphasize the horizontal slab expression in a way that's similar to the existing system. We're going every other floor instead of every floor. And the aluminum windows will be replaced with double or triple glazed curtain wall windows that are available in a custom color. So we can kind of go back to that clear look of the glazing that the original building had. These windows will meet the requirements for energy efficiency and sound control in a way that modern aluminum systems do not. And the solid panel between windows will be insulated metal. The new unitized mechanical system will require venting louvers at the exterior. So these have been added to the facade. We've grouped them as much as possible to reference the panelized look of the exterior, as well as create groupings of windows similar to what the existing building has. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is the south and east elevation where those 1-bedroom units are. We have a little bit more glazing, a little bit less ventilation louvers on that east elevation. And that's showing the enclosure of those balconies, but we're still trying to maintain large swaths of glazing as much as possible. Next slide, please. So here's a close-up elevation of the existing system, which is in the light gray above, and then on the middle wall section there, and then the proposed enlarged elevation of the new curtain wall system, and then a diagrammatic wall section showing that as well. So as you can see in the original design, it's a very simple 4-panel system, all glazing on top, all panel below, slab expressed, concrete exposed to the elements. Very thin, very delicate, and also kind of creating a greenhouse effect for people within the units. The new system, we will be reducing the glazing from about 58% to about 46% in order to meet energy code. But also those sidewall venting for the mechanical system, we're accommodating those louvers within the new module, as well as operable windows. We're maintaining the floor plate expression at every other level, as you can see on the wall section to the right as well. Yeah, so we're trying to keep the elements out, keep all the heating and cooling efforts in the building, and make sure that things are air and sound tight as much as possible. We are in the flight path for the Portland Airport, so sound is a big issue, as well as with the new freeway I-5 addition. Okay, next slide, please. So current renovation exterior colors, all of the exterior metal panel colors are based on Alucobond mica or metallic panels. So they'll all have a minimal reflectivity, but enough to change sheen and color as the sun moves across the facade or as a person moves around the building, which will add depth and variation to that. The primary color will be a neutral warm color, the Harvest Gold mica on the upper left. Accent panels of Colorado Gold Metallic and Native Copper Mica will alternate along the facade, and the JLR Gray Metallic color will emphasize the floor plate expression, which will extend about 4 to 6 inches beyond the face of siding. Currently, the floor plates are expressed about that much as well. The ground floor marble and columns will be painted to match the new storefront, and the ground floor metal panels will provide a slight contrast. Also in that dark gray, you can see the color sample above looks like a very mid gray, but the actual color sample below, the JLR Gray Metallic, is a little bit richer, a little bit browner, and it changes color as you move around it. So we kind of want the ground floor to recede and let the upper floors take that center stage as the original design did. Next slide, please. So thank you for your time, and we welcome your feedback on this project. It's a really unique project, especially for Vancouver and for the area, and we're very excited about it.
Thank you so much for this. As a commission, do we have any questions for the applicant? Looks like Morgan has her hand up, and Jan as well.
Go ahead, Morgan. Let me know if I echo. Try not to echo. One question I had was, you mentioned several times HUD funding, and I know that I work with a lot of HUD applicants. Have you done your historic consultation for Section 106 and gotten those findings yet, or are we still waiting to do that? Is my first question.
Yes, we have run through that. Our consultant is actually here tonight in the audience if there are further questions on that, but we anticipate an adverse effect.
Thank you. Yes, I expect an adverse effect also, which is unfortunate. My second question is, one of the stipulations in the code is that, you know, the key features will be similar. And the key feature of the Smith Tower is its curtain window. And I know we're replacing the curtain windows for all kinds of upgrades, and super into upgrades, super into all of that. But I am looking at the curtain windows in the plan, and I'm looking at the curtain windows on the existing building, and I'm not seeing the similarity that you mentioned. And so maybe you could elaborate on how they're similar. I'm not talking about in construction and like how they're flimsy and thin. I'm talking about how they're constructed, you know, with 4 windows across. You know, like it has a very distinct pattern that we're going to lose with these new curtain windows. So I'm wondering what's similar about them.
If you could reverse back to the elevations, please. Yeah. So for the module for the studio units, there are 4 units of glazing in the existing building. Each one is about 4 foot 7.5 inches in width. We are adding louvers for venting for the mechanical systems at the exterior of the building, which is the most cost-efficient way of doing that rather than centralizing and going up 15 stories for this building. So we are adding venting louvers for each unit. So actually, if you go down to the enlarged elevation, that would be a good, thank you. So this is not, so on the left, you can see between grid lines 5 and 6, that's the basic unit module. And as you can see, this is a 1-bedroom unit because there's the existing balcony from the LSW elevations that we have. So each one of those 4 foot 7.5 inch panels of the above original design, rather than having 4 of those per module, we've gone to a 6 foot 2 module, cost savings and efficiency there. And we're breaking it into 3 panels per unit, but they're offset so that the solid panels are catching the party wall lines. We're expressing that vertical mullion from top to bottom at those panels. So rather than having it between every single window, where it continues from the window head down to the floor plate, we're having it at the edge of each one of those 6 foot 2 panels. That is kind of an efficiency thing. Those we're having to reduce the glazing no matter what because of the venting requirements and 58% glazing and energy efficiency for affordable housing don't truly mix. So that's tough. We are having kind of this expression of the mullion is something that is extra that we were adding on to the facade. So if you could please move back up to the exterior elevation, you can see, if you zoom in just a tiny bit, sorry, these are hard to see. You can see that those verticals continue from floor plate to floor plate, from floor to floor, every other piece of glazing, basically. So if you look at the option on, or the facade to the right by grid line 9, you can see those 4 pieces of glazing and the grid that is expressed every other window segment. So we are having
So
to
yeah,
narrow.
I understood your presentation. My question was, what is similar?
The panelized system is similar. The fact the horizontal banding dimensions we're creating, they're very similar. Previously, it was a 3-foot height with a 5'4" window above. We're narrowing that glazing, but we're providing a taller height. So we're providing a similar ratio of glazing. We are providing 4 windows per unit minimum, which is currently what is provided. We are tightening that up a little bit. We are also expressing that floor plate. We're doing it every other level rather than every single level to try and avoid kind of a pancake look. I think the original building, it's really beautiful to have structure expressed, but the fact that we're hiding that structure and we have to do that to meet energy code, we decided to go every other level and emphasize that.
Thank
We
you.
are,
And
yes.
I'm looking at, I think it's, I have the presentation, it's slides 14 and 46 that actually shows the curtain wall. And that's what I'm talking about, is just the actual panel of the curtain wall and how that differs. Because if you read the nomination for the building itself, it calls out specifically the key element of the Smith Tower is the curtain wall and the design and the architect that designed it. And so that is where the adverse effect is coming from, is that I see, since I'm a professional, I'm not adverse to the project, I'm just telling you, I see this as a big red flag. I don't see that, I see all of everything you're saying, and I'm super pro HUD, and I've seen these buildings be completely rehabbed all across the country for HUD. So I know it's possible. I just see a drastic change in the key facade element being the curtain wall. And I do understand everything that you're saying and why. I'm having a really hard time accepting that as, like, you know, it says in our code, this is what you are, you know, we are supposed to look for, is to uphold these key elements. And if this is the key element, and we are modifying it for purposes like you're saying, which are obviously great purposes, that's got to really outweigh this building not being eligible any longer and degrading the architect and his building. And from our perspective, as historians and historic preservationists, that's kind of like where for me, it kind of gets really tricky. And I know there are ways to do it. I'm unsure if this approach at the curtain wall is the best approach with keeping up with the historic intent of the architect and the design. And that's just all that's not a question. I don't, it's just kind of it's like my feeling. But I really appreciate your drawing. And I just want to clarify, this drawing, it makes it look square, but we are not making a round building square.
Yes, it is a really hard
it's just
building
an
to
architectural
elevate.
drawing. It just looks really
It's
funky.
a really hard building to elevate. I got a drafting board to work on this. Yeah, I will say that the current system, I would not call it a curtain wall. It is a stick-built system. It is floor to floor. And that's actually part of the reason this building has 170 units. and 170 seniors minimum living in it who are in need of affordable housing and assistance. In order to keep,
that's the same story since it was built.
yes,
That's the
exactly.
beauty of this building.
But
This
in
building
order
has
to,
7 elements. It is like of the shining example of a National Register eligible building. This is it. And once these even with the alterations that happened in the 90s, it is still eligible. But right now, once we start doing this, it's we're really starting to really impede on not being able to identify the original building any longer.
yeah, I
And
hear what you're saying. I want to just tell you guys the reason for the curtain wall system, the new one, is that this building has to remain occupied during construction. So there's like a sequencing issue. So that's why we're moving everything to the outside of the system. There's an interior wall that will be built post installation of the exterior. So this is part of the curtain wall system, and moving everything to the outside of the facade completely is due to having to install the exterior new system while the interior old system is still up, so that people could potentially live in the unit if they need to. It's just a huge sequencing and moving people and housing people issue as well.
I got a question then. Let's just say if somebody wanted to, because this will be a question for Section 106. I know we're going to put this curtain wall on and we're going to have different windows. Is the structure still going to stay the same inside?
Yes.
Could somebody reverse it and take your curtain walls off of it?
Yes, I mean, there'll be steel brackets attached to the exterior slabs in order to suspend the curtain wall system, which will be attached completely to the outside of the structure. None of the, even the exterior stud walls are barely going to be resting on the slab. We're going to have interior walls as well, currently with the MITEC Benson system that is in place. The other thing is that we are adding structural fiber reinforced panels at the core along the, where the elevator and the stair and everything goes. There is some degradation around there. So we are adding some reinforcement at the interior.
Thank you.
Jan, I believe you also had questions?
Sarah answered my question as part of her discussion with Morgan.
Awesome. Love it when that works. Are there any questions from the public for the presenter? I see none in the room. Are there any online or on the phone?
So I will read the instructions again really quick. If you are using a computer or a mobile device, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. There are going to be instructions on how to do this in just a minute on the screen. For anyone on the telephone, please dial *3 on your phone's number panel to raise your hand. Please note public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person in order to accommodate all speakers. Jessica, I'm going to send you a request to unmute right now.
Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Ingeman with Continuum Preservation Consulting. I'm the historic consultant on the project, assisting with the Section 106 review. And I just wanted to confirm that, yes, we have been in consultation with the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. We received their preliminary feedback, and the project that was presented to you today reflects taking that feedback, and MWA did do some design updates, which we brought back to DAHP. They concurred that definitely we moved the needle in the right direction, but that we weren't able to completely alleviate the adverse effect findings. So we are moving on to mitigation. And we have put together our consulting party group. We're in the process of trying to get someone from the CLG to be part of that's the certified local government. So someone from Vancouver to join the consulting party. I believe those conversations are currently in works between DAHP and the CLG contact. And so we'll be moving on to discussing the mitigation because we want to make sure that the mitigation is, very relevant and appropriate for, this area and this building. And we're doing things that can be meaningful in that regards. So I just wanted to give you that update about where we are in the process.
Thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate that input.
Yes.
All right. Is there anyone else?
I do not see any other hands raised for public comment.
Excellent. Thank you. So if there is no further public comment, is there discussion that we would like to have on this item? Morgan,
I think I
is
have
your...
a professional opinion.
Yep.
I mean, I know that buildings have to be upgraded, but, and I know that they have to stay occupied. I know these things. I go to these conferences. I meet with professionals like the professionals we're with, so I understand these predicaments. I just, I side with, the professionals that this is definitely an adverse effect to the historic building. I know we're just advisory, but that's my 2 cents. I think they did a really great job. I think it's great you guys moved the needle in the right direction. It's too bad you couldn't move it all the way, and get more funding, get you on the National Register, and get you some real get energy credits. Yeah.
Any other discussion? For me personally, I've actually just come up with a question for the applicant. Have you had an energy testing company come in and do an audit of the building?
On some levels, yes, we've had capital needs assessments in the past to go after the GRP funding that we went after this year. We had lots of testing and criteria based on the energy needs for the building. So I'm not sure specifically what kind of energy testing you're referring to, but there's been lots of evaluation on what's needed to bring it up to current code.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I know that there are grants and things that are provided for green energy buildings and testings that are done on the doors and windows. So I was curious if that had, I don't remember hearing that in the presentation, so I wanted to check on that had been done.
Yeah, none of the current envelope meets current code just outright, but we've also been doing evaluations of the current mechanical systems, electrical systems, plumbing systems. A lot of the funding that we're going after requires us to meet very high levels of energy standards, including a passive house level of energy.
Have you looked into the, gosh darn it, I just had that name. What is it? It's the C-PACER loans. That are on our website that are specifically for these buildings and this kind of renovation, where they have a.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that one.
I would definitely look into this. Would be like a shining example of how you could use that funding, because it's not necessarily grant funding, but we put together all of the information on the website. It is great information, and it is not too late. And this is the kind of project they would absolutely love to help you fund. So.
Got it. Yeah, we'll definitely look at that.
Yeah, check that out.
So Lara, our funding person, is in attendance. So
yeah, Housing Development Center is part of our team. They're definitely pretty up to speed on funding. Funding's out there, but the more the better.
This
Yeah,
is
it
a
will.
really unique thing to Washington, and only certain
Got it.
counties in Washington are on board right now. So the bucket is full.
That's really great to hear.
And it's a
Especially
little
these days.
complicated. That's why I'm pointing to the website, and your person will look into it, and I'm sure you'll see if it's right for you or not.
It's on the Historic Preservation website for Clark County.
I believe so. Isn't that
Okay.
true, Jan? Susan?
That wasn't my section I was working on, so I can't answer that question. Bart might be able to answer it.
We'll do some digging. Thank you for that.
I
for
believe
that
it's on
direction.
the website. They keep saying they were going to put it on the website, and I believe they did. So I don't know why my hand is still up. I gotta put that down. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Much appreciated.
This is Susan. It's on the building. So community development, building safety section of our website.
Be somewhere. Because Washington State has some of the highest codes, and we're only going to get stricter, right? So
Yep.
only more and more of these projects will be coming, to fruition. I hope. Save the old buildings.
So in a step to move towards a motion, but to continue the discussion, as I heard that from Jessica, that they're in discussions about mitigation and that we've just discussed having this new lending or funding ability, would anyone be interested in hearing back about this development in a few months when they've had a chance to look into the funding and discuss mitigation and see if the plans change any bit?
I'm always interested in project updates, especially if things change, especially if the needle moves in a historic preservation direction.
Anyone else? Heidi, Andy?
No comment. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So, awesome. If there's no further discussion, I will take a motion on the request. Am I allowed to make the motion?
I thought we were just advisory on this matter. What would the motion be?
We're just about advisory.
Yes, recommendation. It was more of a, not a decision, but a recommendation request. And the motion I was going to be would be to recommend that we hear back from this project in a few months after funding avenues have been looked into and the mitigation has been discussed so that we can hear more about the evolvement of this project.
Vice Chair Thatcher, you could make that suggestion, but probably not as a motion.
Could I, this is Trisha, could I jump in on the parliamentary procedure?
Yes, totally, please.
Sure. Thank you. So because this is advisory, as you noted, the motion will be either to accept the report with amendments if you so desire, or a motion not to approve the report. So those are kind of that's functioning here.
Commissioner Gregg moves to approve the report.
What does that mean when you move to approve the report? In the past, what we've done, and maybe we've been not correct with this, is if we had some specific recommendations, I mean, we just approved a motion saying we would recommend that you look at whatever, look at other ways to preserve this building, do energy upgrades, but preserve the curtain wall. So I don't understand what report we're approving. We're approving the presentation. We're approving Anthony saying that the city is going to approve this. So maybe
Yes.
Trisha can explain that.
Yes, Commissioner Peter, thank you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
So you could accept the report with amendments. So that's what I understood. You just were sort of suggesting making some, some proposals. You could vote to accept this report with proposed amendments, which the city could then consider. But yes, the staff report is what you're accepting, that this presentation is part and parcel of. Is that helpful?
My motion to approve the staff report remains, but I'm open to amendments.
Could we do amendment or accept the staff report with proposed amendments to have an additional presentation after the section 106 review is done and the mitigation has gone through?
I can't approve it until it's further along, and I don't even know how the city can.
Then I'll withdraw.
It has more processes it needs to go through, and it can get derailed at any moment. And
I'll withdraw my.
No, you're fine. You're fine, Greg. Andy, you're fine. I'm just, we're having our thing. I just personally, though I really appreciate it and I want to see this project go forward. I do. I just have big concerns about the historic integrity of the building and keeping with the significance. And, I didn't really hear a lot about that in this presentation. You're presenting to a Historic Preservation Board. The city just did the survey. They just hired the consultant that did the, I don't know how many page-long evaluation of this building and how important it is and how important this architect is. It's just really hard for me to stomach, seeing it just totally look different when I'm eating across the street or visiting my friends who actually live in the building. I'm just having a hard time with that. And that's just my personal, stance as a professional. So I cannot accept the report. I can accept the report. No, I can't accept the report. I just can't, Andy. I think that we need more information about how the state is going about their mitigation with the adverse effect. And I don't understand how, as a historic preservation board, we can be behind a project that the state isn't really behind. And it just kind of seems odd. It seems at odds against each other. But I do support the project, so that's where I find myself in a kerfuffle, Tricia, honestly. And so I can't approve the report, as is. Without having more weigh-in from the historic preservation professionals who will ultimately weigh in on the project with the adverse effect and the mitigation. And the mitigation might change some of the design because the reason
Commissioner Frazier, would you approve deferring a vote and postponing until further information is forthcoming?
Absolutely.
Before we do that,
I think that's what Elaine was getting at in a way.
Yes, I was getting at it, but before we go for motions, I have hands up from both Jessica and Anthony. Did you see which hand went up first, Susan? Jessica, I'm going to take you first because I think your hand went up first.
Okay, looks like I'm unmuted now. Yes, I just wanted to circle back and make sure and clarify the mitigation, how that process is going to work and likely where that is going. So the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation is not talking about any further design changes. We've talked about how the design could be modified, that we worked with the architect. We took it as far as feasibly could be done. And so there is an understanding that this is what we've asked them to review and issue their findings on, and that we're ready to move to mitigation. And so the mitigation wouldn't be about changing the design further. They were sympathetic to the fact that on these modern buildings, it is very difficult when you're upgrading an envelope. I went through this with the Portland building. I was the historic consultant on that. And we also unfortunately had an adverse effect determination from the Oregon SHPO and worked with them on mitigation on how how to provide some benefit to counter what they felt was, an adverse effect on that National Register property. So the mitigation we'd be talking about is in the arena of documentation, interpretive panels, other things that we can do to provide historic preservation benefit, interpretation, documentation, understanding of this structure, other modernist structures that we haven't even had our first meeting, so I can only give you sort of the range of things we might be talking about, but we weren't talking about modifying the design any further. The other piece is I don't know a whole lot about CPACE financing. I've looked at that a little bit for projects. I'm feeling a little bit doubtful, and maybe Lara, if she knows about it, would raise her hand if we want to have any further discussion, but I'm thinking because this is a affordable housing project that I believe there's an assessment related to that funding source. And so I'm not sure that would work here. So I wouldn't want you to think that had a lot of potential traction and something that we would want to circle, pause anything to circle back on. So I just wanted to provide those two comments.
Thank you for that, Jessica. Anthony, would you, the floor is now yours.
There, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to articulate that, well, pretty much Jessica just said that the design that has been submitted that you're looking at is what the city is reviewing and will issue a land use decision on. If there was some kind of, Jessica just cleared it up, there's not going to be any design changes. I was going to say if there were, that would require further review, something like a post-decision review or another review. So yes, I wasn't anticipating any design changes, and Jessica just clarified that. I appreciate that. But so I wanted to clarify.
Excellent. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Jessica. With those being known, let's head back to the discussion of a motion. Morgan, I believe we left it with you with a rejection or a postponement of decision.
I just think that the commission should go ahead and make whatever motion that they feel is appropriate. I know what I feel, and I feel that I feel that the mitigation, will probably, it will serve somebody. Will it serve, our community? I'm not sure. I just find it a huge loss. So I would just leave this up to somebody else to make the motion to accept it or whatever. And if I choose to vote against it, I will, and it's fine. It's
Sounds
absolutely
good,
fine.
Shan.
But as a professional, I just can't. I can't approve it. I can't just watch another building in our core just change this drastically, and it just keeps happening. One building after another building after another building after another building, and it's just super unfortunate. Even though I do really like the project and I really like all the work that everyone's put into it, and I think everyone has done a fantastic job. And that's all I have to say.
Jan, your hand is up.
I just want a couple clarifications. This building is eligible for the register, but not on it. Was that I can't access the county website from Hawaii from my iPad.
It's been determined eligible for the Main Street project and the Crossing project.
Okay.
But it's not on the National Register.
Okay, so when you said there's a lengthy report that the city did for this building and honoring the architect, are you talking about the work, the inventory work that's been done as part of the Crossing project?
The Crossing project and the City of Vancouver with that City Main Street project updated the historic inventory form, and that's why I believe that they're getting an adverse effect. Is those are so robust. I don't even think you can do any more history on the building. Like it's fantastic. I sent a copy to Bart and Susan, so if you want a copy just for your own reading pleasure, I'm sure they'll send it to you.
Okay, and this is a question for Tricia. This is an advisory review, and it sounds like at this point, the only advice we've come up with is Morgan's concern that this is too much of a drastic change for the building. We can choose not to take any action on this, right? We are not required to approve Anthony's report or make suggested changes, we can just thank them very much for the presentation and just leave it at that, right?
Yeah, it's an advisory review. I mean, you could choose to approve it. You could choose not to approve it. The advisory review gave you the opportunity to discuss and deliberate upon it. And so it's just a sort of a decision on the record for the HPC. And ultimately, the planning official then makes that decision and could, in their purview, decide to return in consultation with the applicant. Those are certainly possibilities. But yes, I think if the ultimate decision of the commission is take a motion to take no action, that seems perfectly within your purview.
So that does require a motion. We can't just decide to not make a motion on this.
It's a good question. I mean, I think as far as completing the advisory review process, I mean, certainly this is on the record. We know that the advisory review occurred, and that was what was required by the VMC. And so as far as a closure to the process of, taking no action, from a parliamentary perspective, I don't know off the top of my head whether that creates a parliamentary issue. Given that it's an advisory review, there's not really an advisory vote that's at play, right? It's really just about accepting the report or not accepting the report, or accepting the report with amendments. So I guess you could choose to take none of those actions, although I assume that really the result of that, it's not accepting the report, right? If the decision is amongst the commission that this is not what we want to accept, that's not accepting the report. And so to me, that would be a motion that you could consider. I think if you choose to do nothing, that doesn't change the fact that the city came before the HPC, sought that advisory review. And so I think that box is checked because that was what needed to occur under our code.
Okay.
I think I want to commend the people for putting this all together. It's really great work. I hear what everyone's saying. Could it keep more historic? Yes. But, we're in a housing crisis right now. Like, that's bad. It's bad. And they're doing some work in here to make more ADA accessible units. I see that as a good thing too. Would I love it if it would be able to retain some of that stuff? Yes. But, it's right now, I think this project's going to move forward, I think, regardless of what we say here or not. And so, we can reject this report, but I mean, a lot of hard work was put into this. It's hard for me to reject something that someone put together already. Like, it's not like our votes, they came into us, they did what they had to. It's not perfect, but sometimes some of the stuff isn't.
So for my personal opinions, this is very important work. We are in a housing crisis. It is low income housing. If I was in these houses, I would want to be able to control how hot and cold my unit is. However, I am heartbroken at how far the new design is from the original design. As Morgan has stated, we are losing historic building after historic building. Designs, remodels are making previously beautiful buildings almost unrecognizable. And it is heart-wrenching to see another one coming down the pipeline with the best of intentions. And so, along with the rest of you, I am struggling on this. I want to accept, in the end, accepting and rejecting this will have no basis on if this project continues. This is no basis or little to no basis. Bart's making faces.
For the record, I'm not making faces. I was smiling in understanding at the chair.
Awesome. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't stating something that was incorrect. I think I will recommend everyone here to speak their hearts on the matter as having our words in testimony on this might be as far as we can get with this project. So I want everyone to have their time to say things. Jan, is your hand still up from previous, or is this a new hand up?
Forgot to take it down. No.
I do that all the time. All right, so okay, I'm going to ask if I'm allowed to do something.
Chair, you should direct those kind of questions, since this is a city matter, to Tricia and
Awesome.
Jason and Anthony.
Thank you. I look to Bart and Susan because they're in the room. Tricia, I'm going to ask this of you as our lawyer, or the city's lawyer. Is there a possibility that I can open the floor to each member of the commission and request that they, if so desired, speak their feelings on this project without having it be a final vote or verdict?
Certainly, that from my perspective, that's just deliberations, and that's what the commission is doing right now. And so I think it's in the commission's purview if it wants to further engage in discussion about this report.
Sounds good. Then I am going to go through the list of everyone here. If you would like to add something for the record about this building before we make a motion to say things. Jan, would you like to start?
Sure. I am happy to see this project. I'm sad that the building is going to change considerably, but I've been in these units, or a couple of them, when I worked for the city, and it is low-income senior housing, and this is a way to make those seniors more comfortable in their homes and be more energy efficient. And even though I echo Morgan and Elaine's concerns about the building looking significantly different than it was originally designed, I'm happy to see this project moving forward. This is kind of off to the side, but I wonder if we gave any thought to maybe using colors on the building that were more in keeping with the original design, although it did have the nickname of the beer can when it was the original colors. But anyway, I'm done. I'm finished.
All right, Morgan? Is there anything you would like to add?
I've said my piece. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to it. I think I have said everything there is to say about how I feel about the project. Thank you.
All right, Andy?
No comment.
Heidi?
Just that I echo, Elaine, what you and Morgan are saying, that I feel really torn. This is a vital need for housing. And also I feel very sad seeing a lot of our historic buildings be changed. So torn on this one as well, but nothing further to add than that.
All right, John?
Yeah, I wish that they had maybe gone with keeping the every level distinct rather than the every other. I think that would have helped with the, keep some of the aesthetics of the outside of the building. But, we're talking about a vulnerable population that needs assistance, and, they should be retiring in comfort and not being able to really do anything about heat. It's sad, but, there's definitely a need for it. And so I wish there was a slightly different take on the aesthetics on the outside with some of the colors or they said they went every other story now instead of every story. And I wish they had kept at least every story to keep that more distinct look on the outside, but at least it's not becoming square. It's still going to be round. I'm trying to find some silver linings in this. But you know, the people inside that building do matter, and we got to make sure that they're taken care of too.
Thank you, John. And as I started this with my opinion, I will just wrap it up by saying I agree with this commission. We do care about the members of our community, and we are thrilled that we are taking care of them, that we are making these improvements so that the individuals in these buildings are comfortable and safe. But we will miss the historic aspects that will be erased during this process. For that, I will make a motion that we will reject the report. Does anyone support the motion?
Commissioner Frazier would second that.
All right, we will now take a roll call vote on the motion. Jan Vader. Oh, sorry, Susan's doing that, not me. I'll let Susan do it.
Jan Bader,
No.
Morgan Fraser,
Wait, I voted against the motion. Oh,
Can you read the motion again? Sorry, I got distracted.
Yes, the motion would be that instead of accepting the report, we are rejecting the report. So it would be a negative finding. So voting, each of us voting yes on the roll call would be in support of us rejecting the report.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. My vote is yes.
Andy Gregg,
Present.
I'm sorry, I need a yes or a no vote. Or abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Heidi Mandler Huff,
No.
John Zingali,
No.
Elaine Thatcher.
Yes.
Okay, we have 3 no votes, 2 yes votes, and 1 abstention. So motion
The motion fails.
fails. Thank you.
As this is my first time being at the pulpit for this, does that mean we need to create a new motion until it's accepted?
Well, you can.
Susan's looking at things.
No, I just think that this is a city case, and so I should not be giving you advice on that.
Awesome, right. I need to look at Trisha, not at the faces in the room.
I think that Commissioner Gregg's correct. You can choose to make another motion if desired.
All right, I will then make another motion.
Point of
No, I can stay with
clarification.
this. Yeah,
Point of
Andy?
order, please. In past practice, the chair has not made motions. The chair has deferred to colleagues to make a motion. Not saying you can't, but it's not past practice.
That is good to know. Trisha, I'm going to look back at you. Was me making the motion problematic or just not practice?
To be honest with you, I don't know that answer off the top of my head. And I think if past practice, the chair has always deferred that you would continue with that practice for the purposes of continuity of how your procedures have gone historically.
Sounds good. For
And
that,
as
yes,
an
Andy.
aside, during my terms, multiple terms as chair, I always deferred to colleagues to make the motion and to make the second, because as we have learned through sad times, that the appearance of impropriety or the appearance of favoritism has never been a positive impact on this commission.
That I appreciate that, Andy, especially as I am new filling this role for someone else. The reason I had wanted to make the motion is because it is such a passionate topic. I didn't want the decision to have to fall on anyone else's shoulders, but I will keep with tradition and I will pass the motion making to another member of the commission.
No, but Commissioner Thatcher, in deference to you, somebody else would hold that torch for you and respect your passion for the proposal by making an affirmative motion on your behalf.
All right, I believe Commissioner Zingali would like to say.
Yes, based off of our last roll call vote, I make a motion to accept the report on Smith Tower.
I, Heidi Mandler Huff, would second that.
All right, well, I'll now have Susan take another roll call vote.
Jan Bader,
Yes.
Morgan Fraser,
No.
Andy Gregg,
Yes.
Heidi Mandler Huff,
Yes.
John Zingali,
Yes.
Elaine Thatcher.
No.
We have 4 yeses and 2 nos. The motion passes.
The motion has passed. I thank everyone, the presenters, the staff, and the commission members for being engaged in this topic. Next, we'll move on to new business. Bart will provide us information on the county's comprehensive plan periodic update for historic chapter 8. Bart?
Yeah, give me 1 second to get queued up here. So I'm just going to spend a minute or two giving the commission a little bit of background about what we're doing. Then I'll open up a track changes document that we can all look at together. And my hope is that questions, comments, discussion can kind of come up organically as we scroll through the document. This is not a public hearing or anything of that nature. So it's more feedback and informational. So at the risk of being redundant with the staff report that I have pulled up, you all have heard Susan and I make many comments over the last few months about how our department and also the whole county is working on the periodic update for the comprehensive plan. That is in full swing at this point. We are actively working on edits to chapters, working on a timeline to meet state rules and bring things for planning commission and then county council approval. We're having regular meetings with City of Vancouver, long range planning staff and the other cities. So it's a big project. That is by way of saying that one of the jobs that we are given is to look at each chapter individually. The comprehensive plan, again, is not zoning. It's the foundational document that guides a lot of other land use planning and comes underneath the zoning, as well as some broader topics such as housing and different things. Right now, the comprehensive plan is made up of 14 chapters. There will be a new chapter, is my understanding, for the climate element that has been mandated. And one of the chapters that has always been in the comprehensive plan is the cultural and the historic and cultural chapter. It's currently chapter 8. I don't know if there will be any renumbering with the plan update, but that's what we have right now. The chapter as it stands is if not the shortest, then one of the shortest chapters in the comprehensive plan. It is driven by Goal 13 of the state GMA, the Growth Management Act, which has a very simple but powerful statement. Goal 13 is, quote, to identify and encourage the preservation of lands, sites, and structures that have historical or archaeological significance. period. That's a simple statement, but as we all know, those simple statements can lead to a lot of very complex thought processes and policy discussions. What has resulted and what has been present in our plan for a long time is basically what you see before you in draft format. This it's about 5 pages in the document that we have of Chapter 8. As you can see, if you've had time to look at it, it's very high level. This is not intended to be like code, like the county or the city's historical ordinance. It is designed to be a high-level policy document about the intent of what the program is and what the county would like to do now and in the future. So we are in compliance with GMA as far as any information I have, and we have been directed on this chapter and all of our chapters in this update to minimize revisions and text updates, to only make changes if they are necessary or mandated by new legislation, etc. So that is by way of background to say that what the document that I'm going to pull up in a second doesn't have much in the way of suggested changes. There's some little bit of wording updates. Susan and I have both been through this document. We've shown it to our supervisor, and now we're showing it to you all. And if there's anything that is glaring or a question, please let us know. Nothing is baked in. But again, I would reiterate that it is in compliance right now, and we are under direction to make minimal changes. So with that, I'm going to pull up our track changes copy. When we get into the actual updating documents with the Planning Commission and the County Council, we'll have an underlined strike through version that will look very similar to this, only it won't have the color coded text that you see now, because that's a remnant of the word track changes. So I'm not going to, try to discuss every word change. If you have a particular question, please ask me. I'm going to point out a couple things. First thing, Susan and I both looked at the little table here. It's very straightforward. We updated the number of sites on the county register to what is the current number. And I went back through on the DAP website and found one more site. So I changed from 43 to 44 of the state and national register sites. They seem to be a one-to-one correspondence as far as I can tell. The barn register hasn't changed. That's been static since the last update. Another thing that I would,
Are
go
you going
ahead.
to change the header so it doesn't say 2015?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you. See, I'm just making sure people are awake, Jen. Thank you.
It's just 10 years off.
Yeah, and obviously the master document is a couple hundred pages long, so page numbers are just placeholders at this point. But thanks for that, Jen. And again, we can go back if you have questions. I'm just going to highlight a couple things down at the bottom of page 2. That second paragraph in that section there, that's probably the most changes that Susan and I thought were appropriate, because we wanted to emphasize the partner dual nature of the city and county, both having a role in the historic review and staffing the commission. Tonight is a perfect example of that, the partnership of that, and then just that extra sentence at the end, kind of clarifying what the types of reviews that we focus on. Again, this document could be 3 times as long if we did a laundry list of everything we do, and that's not exactly the point of it. But if you all think there's something glaring omitted, please let us know. The goals and policies are actually the more operative part. Again, none of this is code, and if anything ever comes to an interpretation issue, the policies tend to be the most powerful part of the comprehensive plan chapter. The narrative parts are just background, and so we didn't see any need to make any major changes to these. A couple of word choice clarifications that we added. They're on 8.1.5, review land use actions. Review of land use action should be sensitive and give consideration to protection of cultural resources. And then I added, while ensuring compliance with the County and City of Vancouver historic preservation ordinances. It could be seen as extraneous language. It's important to me to emphasize that, because that's a big part of what we all do with the work of this commission. Down lower in the strategies, which again are not binding, they're aspirational and something to guide policymaking down the road. Couple of word choices that maybe clarify the thrust of what we do. And then at the end, especially based on the recent amount of time I've been spending, I thought it was important to add a mention of the Historical Promotion Grants Program, because that wasn't specifically mentioned in here, and that's become a big part of what this commission does on an annual basis. With that, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to look to Susan to see if she has anything to add, and then I would love to have any questions anyone has about this.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you, Bart.
I'm all ears. I have a red pen and a piece of paper in front of me.
If we have like some grammatical things that we're just seeing,
yes,
can I make them on mine and hand them to you? Or
yes, Mr. Zingali, I would. and Chair Bone is not here, so someone needs to give me grammatical.
I just see, like, I'm an Oxford comma person.
Yes,
so
Oxford. Well, that is, to be fair, that is one of my pet peeves for the whole document. A lot of the comp plan has been written without Oxford commas,
yes, and I see it like a lot of and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, if there's any particular one, please let me know.
Yeah, I see one on, like, for me, it's page 1. I made a mark. I can get it to you, and just,
okay.
The one thing I'm thinking is some of these acronyms you may want to spell out because this is for other people too. Like, it says DAP, but I don't see that like spelled out anywhere else.
Okay, where
or no?
you
Oh, okay, I see it up above. Never mind.
Okay.
I was just looking on the policies one that said coordinate with that, but on page 2, I do see that it is spelled out Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. I just want to make sure that it's at least spelled out at least once in the document, so that public just picks it up, doesn't have to go looking for all the different acronyms and stuff like that.
Double check acronyms. Go.
Yep.
I see Andy's hand raised.
When we're done with this topic, I'd like to revisit our decision regarding the Smith Tower. Given our division of opinions, I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to reconsider that vote. I'm uncomfortable with the commission having such a division. And if we could delay that decision, or if I could reconsider my vote in favor, I think that there was enough concern on the part of my colleagues to take another look at that decision.
Thank you for speaking up, Andy. We can revisit and discuss that once we finish this topic.
Yes, I know.
As you requested.
I thought folks were done with this.
Not a problem.
But I didn't want to let it go any longer.
Sounds good. Let's see if anyone else has discussion on the comprehensive plan.
I think that if John gives some grammatical points, that will help. I just wanted to say thank you. Wow, you guys did a lot of work. Even the small inserts that you put in there definitely made a big difference. And I can tell you put a lot of thought into that part. So thank you.
It was a team effort with Susan and I, and then our supervisor Jose helps us out a lot as a backstop. But thank you, Morgan. And again, this is the public
Tell
hearing.
Jose that thank you.
I will. And again, this
Susan,
isn't a
of course,
public
thank you.
hearing. This is not a public hearing. If you think of something else in the next week or two before we get this stuff to the Planning Commission, just shoot it to me and we can talk about it. Anyone else?
All right, seeing nothing from anyone else, we are turning back to the Smith Towers discussion and starting it with Andy as he requested the revision. Oh, Susan would like to say something.
I just think it might be good to have Tricia from the city weigh in about reopening this item now that the applicant has left.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the advisory review has closed. The motion did pass. And so from a parliamentary procedure perspective, I'm not sure that it would make sense to reopen it, particularly given that the applicant is no longer present. And the first motion really did the same thing by rejecting, did the same thing as the second motion. And so it seems that the advisory review has been completed because the motion passed by a vote. This is a matter of first impression for me, but from my perspective, that advisory review is now closed.
With all due respect, Tricia, we could amend the minutes to reflect a different outcome.
And I would have to just from a parliamentary perspective, I just have to review this and determine what would be appropriate and you know what is permissible and not permissible under Robert's rules. But I do not believe it can be reopened. Jason, do you have anything else that you want to add? You have more experience with this commission than I do.
Hi, everyone. This is Jason. I'm sorry you can hear a vacuum in the background. My wife picked the worst time to possibly do that. Andy, the way we've handled this advisory review in the past, and you may recall, because we do run into situations like we ran into tonight, where it's a little unclear as to how to handle making a recommendation or a vote on that matter. And in the past, we've treated it just for the sake of keeping things easy, treating it somewhat like a public hearing and allowing the HPC members to make a vote so that there's something on the record and something that staff can refer to. But it is advisory, and to Tricia's point, the motion did pass and that closed, and I don't see how from a legal standpoint that can be reopened and discussed once the motion passed. But it sounds like Tricia's going to look into that, but I do not think that is appropriate to open that back up.
So jumping in here, with the feedback from Tricia and Jason, I don't believe at this time we could open it up until we hear back from legal counsel on if we're able to do that. With that, what I'm going to say is if we hear back from Tricia, if we can discuss this later, we would be open to discussing that to add to an agenda item for a future meeting, pending what we hear back from legal.
So Jason and Tricia, are you saying that it could not be submitted as an agenda item for reconsideration?
Who's submitting the agenda item?
Yeah, as to this particular advisory review, the city was obligated under the code to bring this particular advisory review to the commission. And so it has now brought that advisory review to the commission. The commission has voted to accept the report. And so I think that the city, if the city needed to make a change, and the city would follow its code in determining whether or not to bring it back before the commission. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is the commission aware of all of the variables at this time?
What are the variables? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Andy, would you mind giving some additional insight into the variables?
Well, once an initial decision is made, if we have command of additional information, perhaps the initial decision was not based on all of the available information.
What additional information are you referring to?
I was concerned that there was concern on both sides of this issue, and that it was reconsidered in the course of this meeting this evening because of the lack of a majority. So I just felt that
I thought there was, sorry to interrupt, Andy.
There was division on the part of the commission regarding the Smith Tower issue this evening.
Yes, but you took a vote and the vote passed. So I don't know, you know, a vote's not always going to be unanimous. A vote can still pass without it being unanimous. And that's what I heard happen. And once the motion was made and the vote was held, at that point, that item is closed.
So there's no reconsideration of a vote.
Trisha, I'll defer to you on that, but that seems highly unethical to me.
Oh, really? Well, thank you, Jason. Why is that unethical?
So I think that we've closed out the advisory process review. As to the parliamentary procedure for whether or not after a vote has been taken and has passed, whether there may be any later motion to change that vote, I don't know the answer to that because I just need to review Robert's rules. And so I can advise on that, but not right at the second because I have to go look it up. However, I think from the city's perspective, the vote did pass. The vote to approve the report did pass from an advisory. So you're just advising. The city came for advisory purposes, which it was required to do under the code. The commission's either accepts the report, rejects the report, or it accepts the report with amendments. We discussed that earlier. There was an initial motion to reject the report, which failed. There was then a motion to accept the report, which passed. And so I think that closes that item because the commission voted to accept the report. So as I said, this is first impression. So I just need to have a look at the rules and then I can advise. But from my perspective, the matter has closed because the vote has occurred. But I can go get the rules and come back.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Nortz, I take exception that you have alleged that my concern and questioning this is unethical.
Yes, I apologize, Andy. That was probably a poor choice of words. I should have said just seemed maybe inappropriate, given that I'm not sure this is the typical process we would follow for a review of this nature. So my apologies.
I thought it was entirely inappropriate.
As we are all here, if you have Robert's rules near you, so that we don't move off topic and have further questions down the line, would you mind reviewing them quickly for us, if that's something we're able to do?
Is it possible to continue while I do this and then come back to this item, or do you want me to do that while we all hold?
No, we can continue and come back. I just, in deference for what Andy is bringing up and the desire to want to do this correctly and to know the procedures for this time and future, would really appreciate it if before the end of this meeting, we could know the correct steps for the future. Is that amenable?
To the extent that I can advise on it and feel comfortable with my advice after reviewing the rules during this meeting, yes, but I may need to consult with my colleagues who also, all of us, advise commissions. And so I may need to discuss it with my colleagues, but I have to read first before I can make that determination.
I appreciate that. If you can take a quick glance and find the information quickly, I would appreciate it. If this is something that we need to review and discuss Robert's rules in a future meeting, I would really appreciate it as the one who has to run the meetings. Thank you. I am going to put a note in my discussion that we will check back in with that before the good of the order, if that's amenable to everyone. All right. So for now, we will move on to old business. First, we'll discuss potential conferences and training opportunities for 2025. Bart and Susan will lead the discussion, but it is for everyone.
I guess this is Susan. I will just note that Commissioner Frazier had suggested that early on in the year, we begin discussion of budget expenditures so that we don't get towards the end of the year and not have that budget expended. So we can send you a list of upcoming conferences like we have done in the past. But if anybody has any interest that in any of the conferences, they tend to be the same ones. But if there's any others, just let us know. But if you have interest that you already know, you want to attend a conference, we would be interested in knowing that. Or if there's any other ideas for the budget for 2025 that you may want to let us know, and if you need research done or anything like that.
And just to piggyback on that, this is not intended to put anyone on the spot. We just want to get people thinking about it as early as possible. The more certainty we have early on makes all the logistics of especially the conferences much easier, because there's a lot of backside planning that goes into making those happen.
Yeah, I'll just say I know I haven't been, my schedule has not allowed me to attend stuff the last 2 years. So like if the sooner we find out dates and stuff, I know a couple of those ones I'd love to try to get my hands dirty into some one of those because everyone raves about them. Yeah. And so if I can adjust my schedule accordingly, that would be great to do that.
Maybe we can get a poll going for the usual suspects to see, and the dates that have already been announced, and see how many people are interested in going to conferences. Maybe we can do that earlier than later.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we can look into that. Next, county staff will discuss the listings cleanup and update projects. Susan?
So yeah, I just wanted to note that for the comprehensive plan work that you saw earlier, we did, Bart did some review of the state information, and I did some review of the local information. And so we think that we have all of the listings, the numbers accurate for both local and state and national properties on the register. as a part of that, we also are developing, Chair Bond had asked for some work in helping with that, and we've got something ready to go. So I'm actually going to email that out to her this week. And I guess I will ask Commissioner Frazier, I'm assuming because you're out of the area right now that you're probably not interested in helping with that, but let me know if that's incorrect. But we're going to start working on updating all of the information so that it can go into the website, and the website will be accurate and the map will be updated so it can show all of the current listings.
Yeah, remotely that would be a little hard, but you know, if you do have a remote job that you just need to get done, you can always shoot me an email.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier, do you have any sense of how long you're going to be out of state?
Oh, that is debatable. This is ridiculous, you know, and then with the current administration upheaval, everything under the sun is unknown. And I do know that it's tentative whether I return. I have things to do in April, and whether I return after April or not, we'll see. Because, you know, after Missouri, there's going to be California, and that's going to be 10 years of work.
Okay, but you're still maintaining your residency here and all that.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm not leaving. No.
Okay.
I come home and
Okay.
visit the cats and dogs. I just can't make a meeting.
All right. All right. Well, we miss you. So be safe.
I will. Thanks.
Excellent. Next, we will move on to announcements and updates. Are there any announcements or event reminders from the members?
I will just say, I was asking Holly Chamberlain earlier, the Marshall Awards are an incredible piece. You get to go down to the, Vancouver Historic Trust. Normally it's always in April, and I'm there because of my students, but unfortunately I'm gone that last week of February at another teacher conference. But if you want to be inspired just by the current adult leaders and younger leaders in our community, I highly recommend attending if you can. It's a wonderful event.
And not to interject, Commissioner Tsingali, did you want to give a heads up about the History Day and judging to come?
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Part of why I missed the last one was because I was getting my students ready for our school-wide event, which was a massive success. But I think we will still have a meeting like the Wednesday prior, but Saturday, March 8th, we will be hosting, iTech Preparatory will be hosting the Southwest Regional National History Day or Washington History Day program at our school all day from like 9 to 5 or so. So if you want to come and see some young historians in action, view exhibits, watch documentaries, historic performances, some of which are about the women working in the Kaiser shipyards, and lots of other things, please stop on by. I'll be sending out some information as well. I can pass it along to Bart when I have the invite fully done and all that kind of stuff too.
Excellent. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m., the first of the Clark County History Museum speaker series starts. So that should be, it's by Linda Fowler Newcomb on the Wampanoag Nation history. Soaring Owls personal experiences. It sounds really fascinating. I'm sadly not going to be able to make it, but if you're available, that should be a great talk. Are there any other events or announcements that members would like to make? Seeing none, I will move on to subcommittee updates. Next, we will hear an update from the subcommittees that have not already been discussed. I'm going to start off with outreach because we had a meeting last week that was pretty in-depth. We have, as it was discussed at the end of last year, we're going to start our outreach attempts early this year. We're going to send out either a Google Sheet or a survey to everyone with the large events that are happening in Clark County this year, to see if anyone wants to go set up a table there, attend as a representative of the commission. We're also going to have additional pages and surveys talking about when people might be available to staff a little booth with our new stuff at the farmers market. Some maybe attend some of the speaker series and other events like that. We also had a really interesting fundraising idea from Commissioner Mandler-Huff that I'm going to now turn over to her if she is available. Commissioner Mandler-Huff.
Yeah, okay. So this is kind of a long spiel that I want to put in front of the commission. I know we've all been feeling a little discouraged, disheartened by our seeming inability to protect a lot of Clark County buildings from destruction, or we're losing a lot of these historic features. So my idea was that there's two parts to this. So the first is we establish a grant for individuals to help fund repairs of historic structures. This would be individuals only who live in Clark County. There would be some parameters. They need to show financial need. They'd need to sign a contract saying no demolition of the building for a span of years, maybe 25 years. We'd have to approve any of those building plans, some parameters there. The second part to this would be we would need, of course, a funding source for this grant. And I'd be happy to lead a subcommittee on this if everybody thinks this is a good idea. The big plan would be to have a gala in 2026 for big donors, silent auction, live music, things like that. But for 2025, we'd be looking at maybe smaller fundraising events. So I've got a couple of ideas on what that would look like. I'm just going to throw them out here. So the first one is a drive-in movie night. So we would need an outdoor projector. We could use a donated parking lot, sell concessions. Maybe we could work with the Kiggins. We could do an outdoor lunch or a twilight picnic, something like I'm imagining the Heritage Farm, twinkle lights in the trees, picnic blankets. You buy a basket donated by a local restaurant, something like that. We could do a 5K through the historic district with a playlist that has information on the properties. And there are also fundraising nights we could do at different restaurants, so either local or chain restaurants. I did some research on this. Panda Express, for example, does 20 to 28% of sales donated on a particular day. Panera does 25%. Burgerville does 20%. So we could do a couple of those. And then I had some little bit less fleshed out ideas as well. DIY restoration classes, Clark County trivia night at a local pub, architectural scavenger hunt with prizes, a calendar with different registry buildings. But essentially this would be the grant for individuals to keep those historic buildings if they don't have the funds themselves to repair things like old barns. So I'll just turn it over to the commission, see what everybody's thinking about this idea.
To clarify quickly, from my previous discussion with Heidi, this grant would be targeted not at the larger organizations, government, non-government agencies who can apply for our normal grants. This grant would be set up for individuals to take care of their own businesses or historic homes. Is that correct, Heidi?
That's correct. It would be for those people who are not eligible for our current grants.
Excellent, thank you. I'd like to open that up to discussion of what commission members think about the overall plan for the gala and the grant, as well as some of the smaller fundraising activities she brought up.
Commissioner Zangeli here. I think it's a great idea. When we were discussing this last week, it's fascinating. My only worry is it's a lot of work to get some of that stuff going. My one worry would be capacity of people, and I don't want Commissioner Mandler-Huff to just take on everything herself. that can be very overwhelming and demanding. And I love the idea. Yeah, it's great. That's my big worry with some of this. Starting off small is one thing, but putting on those big things can, yeah, just take a lot. And I know our staff here is stretched as is too. So that would just be my only concern, but we can start small and build bigger maybe.
This is Trisha. Could I clarify something really quickly? I'm reading the rules, and so I just want to clarify that what I just heard, Commissioner Mandler Huff, were you suggesting that there would be a gala on behalf of the HPC?
Yeah, to help fundraise for this grant source. That's kind of what I had in mind.
I would suggest, Bart and Susan, that you reach out to Chris Cook to ensure that that would be compliant with Washington state law and your county code.
Heard.
Thanks, Trisha, for reaching out with that. We don't want to do anything that isn't above board.
Can you hear me, Trisha? I'm sorry, you are heard, and we have made note of that. And that is, we would not want any of the commissioners to do a bunch of work on something that we didn't have legal authority to do. So we are hearing you, and we are also hearing you, Heidi.
And to echo what, this is Jan, to echo what John said, I mean, I'm on the board of directors of the Historic Museum, and we do a gala. We do a number of the same kinds of things that Heidi has suggested doing, and it is an enormous amount of work. You probably also need to check, because presuming this all works and there is a fund established to provide those grants, I don't know that this county would be able to be the fiduciary agent for something like that. I know we do grants already but they're from the funding source is public money. So that's obviously something you would need to ask Chris.
Okay, this is all very good information to have. Thank you, everyone, for bringing it up. I'm going to say that we table. Oh, I'm actually going to do a clarifying question. Are we just asking these questions in regards to the gala itself, or are we also having these questions about the smaller fundraising events? I'm assuming they're all together as they would involve money, but I want to clarify.
We will ask about any kind of fundraising events and how that idea might move forward.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification. So I'm going to table the discussion until we hear back from legal and the city regarding that. With that, we should check, are there any other subcommittee activities that anyone wants to discuss? Either demolition or the website?
I mean, the website, we have our next meetings next week. So we are continuing to hack away at the updates to the website and are probably about 2/3 or better finished. So progress continues.
Yay for progress and
And
for hacking away at things.
And I suspect that because Bart is very busy with his comp plan and getting that done, that we're not making any movement until that's done with the county, because we need his brain. So I'm sure he's busy. But we'll get back on it.
Are you referring to the demolition? Yes, Morgan. Thank you for the.
Yeah, I figured you were just busy with. That's what I said. You're busy with your the comp plan, and really focused on that. And then when you're done with that focus, we can maybe bring that back to the forefront.
I think we can definitely move it forward before the comp plan is. I mean that's going to go on all year. So I thank you for the reminder.
Yeah. Just I knew you had a big push, so just put it on your to do and reach out to me whenever you want to get together.
Thank you.
Awesome. That will wrap up the subcommittee updates and announcements. Trisha, if you've had a chance to check on Robert's rules, have you found anything, or should we table that for next meeting's agenda?
So I will say that there appears to be a motion to reconsider that exists. However, caveat that it is extremely complex. There are times when it applies, there are times when it cannot apply. And without going through this, I mean, it's like, how many, 20 pages? It's trying to read it on the fly is very challenging. I mean, I just can't do that, right? And so, so while such a motion exists, it may not be applicable in this particular situation, and I cannot advise on that because I can't read all of this in this amount of time that we have. And so, and ideally, I would like to discuss this with my colleagues as well, given that this is a first impression for me. So I don't know what you want to do with that.
Thank you for reading it. Andy Gregg has his hand up.
I'll withdraw my request for reconsideration. But in the past, it's been a wonderful trait of the Historic Preservation Commission to be in near unanimity with its decisions. And so when we have a 4-3 or a 4-2, I like to give due respect to my colleagues who dissent. And that was my reason for asking for reconsideration. It certainly wasn't an ethical question. It was just in deference to my colleagues.
Thank you, Andy, for that. And thank you, Trisha, as well. I would like to know for future when that can be used and when that can't be used in case the situation comes up again. So, Trisha, if you have the availability and we can add this to next month's agenda meeting to review Robert's rules so that we ensure all steps are correctly taken for future meetings. I know a lot of questions came up this session. With that, I'll move. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Trisha. With that, we'll move to the good of the order. Are there any other comments for the good of the order? For me personally, I'm really appreciate all of the emotion, the passion, and the time that we all dedicate to this and every meeting. So thank you to all of my fellow commission members.
And I want to say thank you for Andy for saying that tonight. I understand your wanting of consensus and more unanimity. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. It was for you.
It's okay. Thank you.
Hearing no other comments for the good of the order, I take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to
make a motion to adjourn from Missouri.
I will second that motion.
With motions from Hawaii, Missouri, and Clark County, are we good to close, or do we have to take a vote?
Just a voice vote.
Let's do a quick voice vote from all across the U.S. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well done, Elaine.
Aye. And with
Yes,
that,
thanks,
the
Elaine.
session is.
Good job, Elaine.
Have a great rest of your night, everyone.
Well done.
Bye.